I'm Mike Allen with Politico's Turn the Table with Christiane Amanpour, about to make her debut as the anchor of This Week. Congratulations and welcome to Washington.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good to be here.
Now, you've been getting around on Capitol Hill, talking to people in Washington. I wonder what you're picking up, what themes you're going to be pushing on the show in the weeks ahead.
Well, look, this is obviously a show which has a long tradition, and that will continue. But what I want to do is try to broaden the conversation to really take into account not just the politics of what goes on in Washington and inside the Beltway, but what about the policies that affect the people and how they are formulated and how they're implemented or not. And I think that having talked to a lot of people here in Washington in anticipation of Sunday's debut, and also having talked to a lot of people outside of Washington, you know, Americans who are directly affected by the politics and the policies that emanate from here, people do want, I think, to go deeper and to have a bigger understanding of how really it affects them. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, I also would like to try to do something that a lot of people ask me, knowing that I've spent most of my career as a reporter around the world, to explain to them the world, how the world affects them. They know very well that this is no longer just an island, the United States. Yes, it's still the most powerful country in the world, but everything now is globalized. And every area of endeavor that America is involved in involves also a global partner and a global aspect.
Now, you're one of the best known broadcasters in the world. What do you hope to make distinctive about This Week?
I hope to, as I say, build on the tradition of This Week, but also, as I say, to just broaden that conversation, to have all the elements that people have become familiar with, perhaps add more voices, perhaps get certain experts, certain players into more sort of roundtable discussions, as well as mixing up interviews and not just doing the the inevitable he said, she said,
right,
left, right kind of thing, because I do believe that there is a deep desire, and when you talk to people around the country, they do say they want to know more about the policies and about what matters to them than just about what's very sort of a rarefied discussion inside the halls of power. And I come at this as an outsider, of course, but as a reporter who's desperately curious and who realizes that this is a huge story now, the United States of America, what's happening here in every aspect.
Now, Americans first got to know you as a globetrotter in war zones. Are you worried about feeling a little confined or maybe even a little claustrophobic here in the Eastern Corridor?
Well, look, I'm going to be traveling. Certainly the program will travel occasionally to big stories around the world. I'm also going to be doing documentaries for ABC in prime time about international affairs and affairs around the world that directly impact the American people. So in that regard, I won't be giving that up, and I think that will not just be satisfying the wanderlust, but will really give me the on-the-ground, eyes and ears opportunity to report back to the people here.
What is your sense of where America is at the moment you take the helm of this legendary show?
Well, my sense is that in real terms, it is still the most important, the richest, the most powerful country in the world. But as you know, in relative terms, there are lots of other countries. The obvious ones are China and India. But beyond that, there's a lot that's coming up to challenge the unique position of power that America has been able to rely on for so many decades and throughout its history. So from my perspective, the people of the United States are in a place where their interaction with the rest of the world is becoming more and more important and more challenging, and that kind of dialogue between the United States and the rest of the world is becoming vital.
And we hear that you have new signature theme music.
You know what? I was very lucky because the great jazz musician Chris Botti, who I've met and who I admire his work and his music, through a mutual friend, when he heard that I'd been offered this position at This Week and that I'd taken it very, very generously, he partnered with the Grammy Award-winning musical producer David Foster, and they have, as they say tongue-in-cheek, for less than the cost of a used Prius, have contributed the music. But of course it will be the familiar theme but done in their inimitable, unique way.
And I know you've gotten to know the interim anchor, Jake Tapper. How'd Jake do?
Of course he did very well. You know, I wasn't in Washington as much during that period, but of course he did a brilliant job, and I wish him all the very, very best. You know, he is steeped in all of Washington. He's the White House correspondent. He comes at it from a very unique inside perspective, and he's been amazing at what he's done, and has had a lot of news making and news breaking guests. And I hope, as I say, to build on the tradition that started 30 years ago with David Brinkley, that, you know, George Stephanopoulos brought to a new height, that Jake Tapper has done. And as I say, take this tradition and build on it and broaden the conversation. And from my perspective, broaden the conversation into policy, how it affects the American people, and bring a perspective from around the world that is vital, that is no longer a luxury, that is absolutely vital to the health and the wealth of the people of the United States of America.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you very much for making time. Welcome to Washington. Congratulations and have fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.